Welcome everybody on this Monday afternoon to our string art class. Darren is indeed your teacher there on screen. The voice you're hearing now is Claire. I'm also from Lion Brand and I'm going to be hanging out in the chat with you, answering any questions or passing them on to Darren. He's showing off some projects he's made there. Very nice and pretty on the front, a little extra pokey on the back maybe, but we'll teach you how to deal with all of that. As mentioned, this class is going to be recorded, so you can watch it back as many times as you want later. And if you do have questions over the course of class, just use the Zoom chat function and we'll get to them there. All right, Darren can now take over.
All right, welcome to class. Today is we are doing string art today, so we have a lot to cover. So let's just go ahead and switch it to the view of my hands and we will get started. Started right away. Okay, so string art, there's lots of different ways. There's lots of different ways and different approaches that you can take with it. This one, it's just simple geometric shapes in neutral colors. You can do string art, of course, in a variety of different topics. People are even doing very realistic portraits of celebrities that are very recognizable with string art. And you can do like fun, whimsical animals. You can do pretty much anything you can think of, you can create with string art technique. So don't be limited, just whatever you can think of, you are going to be able to do. So the yarn that I'm going to be using today I'm using wool ease. And this is Lion Brand yarn. It's available on lionbrand.com and michaels.com. And I have 3 different colors, 3 nice neutrals. And of course, you can pick whichever colors you like. This yarn is 20% wool and 80% acrylic. And it's really great for knitting and crochet and crafting projects. So it's a good choice to use. I'm going to be using this is just some cheap paint that I bought just to paint the background of my board. And you're going to need some nails. I bought these nails. They were $1.99 and I did need 2. I needed 1 whole one and then part of a second one. So whatever size nails you want to get, there's no real right or wrong size. If they're 1 inch, that's pretty long. So you might want to maybe a 1/2 inch, but you want them long enough that you can pound them in and still have something to work with. So don't get like super short tacks or anything. Some pliers, need a hammer, and that's pretty much all we need to get started. You're gonna need some paper if you want to make some patterns, or you can just draw it freehand. So pretty much however you want to approach it. Do we have any questions before we get started? Any specific questions or anything at all? Nope. Okay, so I just got a paintbrush. It's just a cheap watercolor paintbrush and some water. And I'm just going to get my board a little wet because otherwise the paint, it's nice to have a little water on it. Nothing fancy. And then when I paint mine, I just squirt a little paint on and just push it around however I like. And there's no real rhyme or reason. I think I got a lot of black, so it might end up being darker than what I originally wanted. And when I paint it, just kind of let your brush strokes show. Like kind of.
Hey, Darren.
Yeah.
Can you check to see if maybe you set something on top of your microphone? You got a little muffled there.
Move it closer. Let's see. Okay. Hopefully that's better. So just paint it however you want. You can, of course, you can do a very precise painting. You could cover it with fabric instead of painting it, or you could just leave it natural. Like you don't have to paint it. You could varnish it and then you could stain it and then varnish it. You can pretty much do whatever you want. But when I paint it, I like to, the ones that I did, I just kind of left my brush strokes show. I didn't blend it out. I kind of did everything in one direction and then in another direction, maybe some swirls. And then when it dries, most of this is going to be covered by your string anyway. So you don't want to fuss over it too much when you're painting it. And I also like to paint the edges. So don't forget about the edges if you're going to paint it. If your board is a thick board, like some of these artist boards are 2 inches thick or 1 inch thick, make sure you're painting the edges. If it's just a flat board, you still might want to paint the edges just so that it looks nice. You don't want to have to frame it or anything, but so just paint it however, it's kind of a non-objectional. That's pretty much it. So any questions? I'm probably not going to paint the edges right now because I don't think you guys want to watch me just paint all these edges. And then of course, I mean, it's just acrylic paint. So if like this bit was a little dark, then you can just go back and blend some more paint in. And you might want to do this, probably do this the day before. So that way it has a good opportunity to dry before you start, because you don't want to, you can't work with it when the paint is wet. So do this the day before, and then you can set it in front of a fan or in front of an open window or something. Okay. Just super basic. Any questions about the paint or the paintbrush or painting? Just have fun with it. And then of course you can use as many colors as you want. You can let this dry and then paint over it to get layers of depth or just super basic. And I just put a garbage bag down whenever I'm painting like this. I like to use a garbage bag for a drop cloth because they're handy. So let me move this out of the way. Try not to get paint all over myself. 1 second. My cat that down where the cat won't jump on it. All right, and then after you have painted your project, it's time to put the nails in it. And this is actually the part that I was dreading the most. I thought this was going to be the hardest thing to do, and it actually wasn't as hard to do as I thought it was going to be. A couple of different things you can do. On this one, I just cut out these shapes and I just laid them out however I wanted them. I traced it with a pencil, and then I just pounded the nails in over the pencil. And then the other time I did it, I actually nailed right through the paper. So you can either just lay the paper out and just nail it directly to it and then peel the paper away, or you can trace it with a pencil. You might get a pencil line, but it's gonna be covered by your yarn. So if you get a pencil line, I don't think it'll show up so much, especially if you're doing shades of gray like this. If you're doing different colors, it might show up, but probably won't be so bad, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about putting the nails in. I saved just a little space here. And my neighbors probably hate me because I was doing this afternoon and I was trying not to make so much noise, but it does end up being kind of noisy. I had this bath towel under it to try to absorb some of the noise. The last time I did this on my first one, I actually went to the park and sat at a picnic table and did it, so that I live in an apartment. If you live in a house, it would probably make things a lot easier. So a couple of different ways of, the thing about putting the nails in, you want to make sure that you want them to be spaced out nice and you want them to all be the same depth. So like these here they got pounded in a little too far. So you can take your pliers and kind of pull them out a little bit with the pliers. So that's why it's nice to have these pliers, because you can kind of readjust after. If you probably are better than I am with hammering in nails. But I didn't fuss over it too much. When you're working on this, you could measure out and put like a little mark like every 4th inch and have them spaced out exact, but I'm not that precise when I do my art projects. Also on this square, like you could count out how many nails should be on each side and make sure they're all exact. But again, I didn't do that. I didn't feel like it was really necessary. So, depending on how precise you want to be, it could go many different ways. So the way I basically did it was I just kind of held the nails and I kind of put my finger. So I held one of the nails and I kind of used my finger as a spacer between the nails. So that way I was trying to get them spaced out about the same distance. So that helped me. Another thing you can do is you can use just a normal clothespin. And if you hold the nail with the clothespin, put it right in there. That way, when you pound it down, you get them all the same depth because it'll be the space of this clothespin will help you save enough of the nail and you can make them all the same depth. And then if you put them right next to each other, you can also keep them spaced out the same distance. I found it a little tedious to work with the clothespin. As you can see, the nail kind of kept falling out. But if you did it like this, you could make sure that you were spacing them all out the same and then getting them the same depth. Trying to get a view. So you can see if you use the edge of the clothespin, but I had a hard time seeing the line where I wanted to nail them down. So just lots of different options about how you want to do that. Also, you can just hold it with your pliers and then nail it in. So that's kind of, I just use my hand though. I work better just with my hands. So I just kind of did this. Oops. Not very good with a hammer and nail. And then you can take your pliers and kind of straighten it out a little bit if you need to. Any questions about your design or getting the nails on, or any questions at all?
Would we say, I mean, especially this part of the project with the hammering and the nails and things, that this is not the part of the project that kids should be helping with?
Probably not. If they're older, if they're, if they are able to manage a hammer, but certainly not little kids, because it can really hurt a little finger. Like you don't want to smash your fingers with this.
I was gonna say, I've hit my thumb with a hammer before. It hurts big fingers too.
Yes, it does. It does. And I actually, when I was little, I had some string art kits and I liked doing it. And I always made my grandfather put the nails in for me. So if you have a nice grandfather, or maybe if you're doing this with your children, you could do the nails and then let the children could paint it and maybe trace the design, and then you could do the nails, the adult can do the nails, and then the children can help you put the string on it. But
You could also, it might not be as much of a permanent version, but what do you think about using like an old light bright game, where you just like stick the pegs in? Could you do that and then wrap the yarn around?
Yeah, I think you could, but like you said, it's not going to be permanent, but it might be a fun way to practice. Just kind of get a feel for it.
Or I know, I don't know who makes them anymore, but you can get, it's pretty much the same size as the board you have there, but like a peg loom, or basically, or like a pegboard, it's got the holes and a grid in it. That could be a more kid-friendly alternative, I think.
Yeah, but then again, it's not, make sure the children realize it's not permanent so they don't get their heart broken when it comes apart.
Right. Well, I mean, if you use pegboard, you could just hang that and.
Oh, that's true.
Yes. Or maybe that's the appeal of it. You can change it out when you get bored of that picture.
True. And then if they want to practice and they get better, and there's always an opportunity. So right here, like there was not enough room for two between here, but there was maybe a little bit more room than I needed for one. So I just put it in the middle. So you can just kind of space them out. And again, depending on how precise you are, you can measure all this out and count out the nails. And then just kind of go, and when you have crooked ones, you can use your pliers to kind of reposition them. But you're not really going to see the nails as much when it's finished. So I didn't fuss over it a lot. Now, I had some ideas when I was working on this. I thought it might be fun, for future projects. You could get different colored nails. You could get some nails that are like these are reflecting kind of silver. You could get some that are bronze. You could get some that are more black and incorporate that in your design. Or I was also thinking it might be fun to just put a drop of nail polish on the heads of the nails. And then you could make them all kinds of colors. You could make them any color of paint that you have. Like you could use paint, you could use nail polish, and then somehow incorporate that into your design. Also, it might be fun to use different lengths of nails. Like you could get nails that are an inch or longer, and then you could have some that are very short and maybe create some depth by having it kind of go up and down with different lengths of nails. What do you think of those ideas, Claire?
Yeah, I feel like I have seen some string art pieces where they do like create sort of a three-dimensional curve with different nail shapes or different nail sizes.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things you could do. And then just kind of check your nails. I've had a couple of loose ones. So you just want to make sure, and if they're loose, you can just pound them down. If you're working if you put yarn around them and they pull out of place, then you can just pound them back in place. So it's not going to be a huge crisis. So, and another thing, like I didn't put a border around mine on this one, but sometimes there's a border all the way around. And sometimes there's not. And I'm going to actually be filling in these shapes. I'm going to be creating, coloring in these shapes. But sometimes I've seen other artists use the negative space. Like you could put a border of nails all the way around, wrap the yarn from the circle to the border, and then never put anything in the circle. And then you create kind of the design around the main feature, and the negative shape becomes the piece of art, and then the string art actually becomes the background. Does that make sense? Just kind of a different ways of approaching it. Okay, we ready to actually get the string going?
Yeah, let's start using some yarn.
Yarn. Okay, so you don't really need to have a darning needle, but it kind of comes in handy to have one around. So you just take your yarn, and you can pick anywhere because we're not really following directions. So you can just anywhere you want, just start. And I'm going to just tie a square knot, just a basic knot, just to secure it. And you can tie whatever knot you're comfortable with. So just anything that's going to help secure it, hold it into place. I've seen people put a drop of glue. I don't feel like that's necessary, but whatever you want to do, you can do. So at this point, there's a couple of different options. How you can work. You can just go random. Like I'm not going to think about what I'm doing. Just kind of go to whatever nail you want and just kind of fill in the shapes, try to go back and forth and just kind of randomly fill in the shapes, make a random design. And this just kind of, it just gives you good coverage. Every now and then it's a good idea to kind of pull it tight and wrap it like maybe 2 or 3 times around the nail so that it doesn't slip. So you can kind of anchor it there and then just randomly go wherever you want and just fill it in. And this might be best or a good way to do it with children, because that way they can't really make a mistake. They can just fill it in however they want, just getting a nice shape. It's probably a good idea to try to cover each nail at least once, but you can go around the same nail 2 or 3 times. You can create extra depth of color in certain areas by, doing more layers or however. So that's one way of doing it. And you can see it, it really already looks like a circle, and you can fill it in. So if this were the shape of a heart or a star or something, it could be kind of a fun way to do it. A nice quick project, because sometimes kids do get, like they lose interest fast. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is you can try to be a little bit more precise. So I'm going to go straight across. I'm not going to go straight across halfway. I'm going to go, just like this little tiny sliver. And then I'm going to go back. And so I'm going to go here. When I go back across, I'm going on this side of that first nail. And when I come back across, I'm crossing over my yarn to go on the same side of my second nail. So this is nail 1. I'm going to go across to nail 2. And I'm going to move. Is this moving? I'm never sure about right or left. Is this moving to the right? I'm going to move to the right. Always moving, always advancing 1 nail to the right. And this is going to give me a more organized kind of a design. And once you kind of start it, it's easy. You're just always advancing 1 nail. And you can see it's causing this crisscross and this extra layering there, and it adds depth and some interest. And you don't have to do the whole, you can just do part of the design, you could do the whole design. But if you are, because I didn't go clear across the design, I just came just for 1 little sliver of it. You can see it's not covering the center of my circle. It's just kind of creating this border along the edge. So it's going to kind of create a border around the circle and leave the center of the circle open. And you can fill that in with a different type of design, or you can leave it open for negative space. Okay. Any questions? Are you able to see what I'm doing?
And with something like that, like you could have stopped when you had just sort of like a sliver done there, and then like join a new color and start layering that way.
Yep, so I could stop right here. You can stop anywhere you want. And I'm going to wrap it around that nail a couple of times, just to kind of give me a little security. And then I'm just going to tie a knot on this side, just a square knot. Just a basic kind of over and under, or you could do 2 half squares. It doesn't matter. You're not going to see the knot. So that nail looked a little loose. So kind of keep your hammer handy because you might need it. And so then there's that. And now let's look at, so you can, I'm going to push these down to the bottom. You don't have to do layers of different colors, but I'm going to do layers. I like to do different layers. So it just depends on what you want. You can do anything. I love that about working with a project. You can do whatever you want. So now I'm going to try another color. I don't need quite this long of a tail, so. And I'm going to pretty much go straight across. Now you could count it and make sure you're going straight across, but I'm just going to kind of go straight across. And it's the same project, I'm sorry, the same basic idea. I'm always advancing 1 nail to the right. So I'm kind of going clockwise around the circle. And you could go clockwise or counterclockwise, and you can see by doing it this way, it's actually going across the center and filling in the center. So you could get more coverage. So if you're trying to really fill in a space, like if it's the center of a flower or something like that, you can completely cover in the space by doing it like this. And it creates kind of this twist in the middle. It almost looks like you twisted it or something. It almost looks like, wow, that's cool. How did they do that? That must be really hard to do. But it's super easy. You just go around the circle. Can you kind of see how that looks like it's twisted, or it looks like it has layers? So, and you can still see the cream colored yarn under it. So it does, even though it's going to be buried, it does still add some depth to it. And so depending on the design that you're making, you could use that to your advantage. So this nail here was a little bit low. So I'm going to go ahead and try to, my pliers, kind of bring it up a little bit. Yeah, so just keep your hammer and your pliers handy in case if you have to make any adjustments. Okay, any questions? So I'm going to put a little extra tight. I'm going to wrap it around this nail a couple of times to secure it. And then I'm going to tie it off and go to the next color. Any questions, Claire? This is pretty straightforward.
I noticed that it looks like you skipped a nail there on either side. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I do like the sort of divided look that gives. Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that, but yeah, I kind of like it now that you point that out. It does give a little bit of a divide there and kind of like a little window or a little peek to the underneath. So that could be fun. You could do you could always skip a nail. You could skip every third nail. You could, work that into your design. So this is pretty cool. This time it was just a mistake. So, okay. Yeah, but that's kind of fun. And then you can bring all of your yarn to the top so that you're closer to the top, or you can push them down and add another layer. Have you ever done string art, Claire?
I haven't, but now I really want to.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, and it was quite popular in the 80s, and there were lots of different kits and stuff. So, yeah, I think that was kind of probably not as popular when you were growing up.
I think it's coming back though. I've seen a lot of it like on Etsy or, Anthropology and places like that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it too. That's why I thought it'd be a fun class. So, and then I'm going to use this black, just kind of tie it on, however, because you don't see this knot, so it doesn't matter. I'm sure somebody probably cares, but I just do like a 2 half squares or a square knot. You just want it secure, okay? And so this time, I'm just gonna go straight up and down. So that nail's loose. Pound that nail in a little bit. See, this way, I'm just going back and forth. You can see that creates another type of a look. And there are no rules. You know how I feel about rules, Claire.
Yes, we know you're not a big fan of them.
Not a big fan of rules. So there are no rules. You can do whatever you want and go. But if you buy a kit, sometimes you do have to follow the rules if you want your picture to actually turn out. So I've seen a lot of kits online. So that just gives it a different look. Just go back and forth. And then one thing you could do at this point, I've kind of created a little loom. You see how that almost looks like a, and so you could take your darning needle and do a little weaving. You could do kind kind of a real quick little tabby weave or something. That might be a fun thing to incorporate. You know anyone that teaches a weaving class, Claire? Maybe we could learn how to weave.
I do, in fact, know someone. He might be currently teaching this class.
Maybe. So yeah, it's always fun to incorporate more than one craft. So you could, I'm not going to take this too far, but you could, if you create like a little loom type situation, you could create something really fun. And I didn't mean for that to go on to this other nail, but you could kind of connect them. You don't have to have that separation. You could kind of connect them or lift it off of it. So that could be fun. So there's lots and lots of different options. You could put beads on some of this yarn and create a design with beads. There's so many choices, so many fun choices. Any questions? I don't think they've had any questions, have we?
Not any that have come through the chat. No, people are just so entranced by what you're doing there.
It is. I like to encourage everyone. It is very straightforward. Some things that we teach are more complicated than others, and some need more practice than others. But this is one where it is a really great project for kids because you can, once you get it set up, you can just kind of jump right in. You don't need really any practice at all, and it's great for kind of hand-eye practice with kids, like the dexterity, if they're wrapping it around the little nails. It could be really a good project for even small kids. And it would be fun to try to experiment with different textures of yarn. You could use really thick yarn and really thin yarn. You could use yarns that are very fuzzy to get a different kind of a look, maybe some thread.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun to play with different textures or different densities of yarn. Like you said, like use a real thick one and a real thin one. This also seems like a great way to use up all those tiny bits of yarn I collect, because I will eventually use them someday.
You will use them someday, and this could be that day, Claire. It might be fun too to do a ghost out of like fishing line. That could be fun for Halloween.
Oh, that could be very fun. Or use fishing line for a spider web and do a little spider in there.
That would be, I want to do that now.
I know. I was thinking, oh, wouldn't a little pumpkin done like this be very cute?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you mess up, see right here, I didn't get it around. You can either take it off.
Readjust your camera a little bit. We're at a weird angle now. I think we're seeing part of your camera support on the side there.
Yes, I have a weird camera support setup here.
There we go.
No, we don't.
Oh.
Yes, my tripod broke, so I'm improvising. I should need to order a new one. If anyone wants to recommend a nice tripod, let me know, because last one I ordered was not nice, and I don't know any good ones, so accept recommendations on tripod suggestions. All right, any other questions? I think we are going to finish early this week, Claire. I know I always say that, we never do, but I think that's pretty much most what I have. I thought there'd be more questions, but it's very straightforward. It's a very straightforward idea. You have anything else you want to ask?
Boy, could you show, oh, good question. Yes. What do you do with all those little ends sticking out on the board?
Yes, perfect. That is a good question. So depending on how thick you make your design, I like to leave enough to work with. You don't want to leave a lot. And then I just kind of tuck them under. And again, this is where, see, I also have a tweezer. So if you don't have pliers, you might want to have a tweezer handy. There's lots of different tools. And then just kind of hide them underneath. And you don't really have to tie them in like knots, but just kind of weave them kind of under to where they're going to be kind of held under there. And then pull it tight and snip it off, and they'll just kind of disappear right underneath. Now, if you have something like this where, let's just say for some reason, you're just going to leave it really open like this. And so I have these two ends, but there's no really way to hide them. What you can do in a situation like this is just make sure you tie it really tight so that it's not going to come off, and then just kind of trim it off as flush as you can. And then in a situation like that, just so you don't see that fuzzy bit, you might want to put a drop of glue or like that fiber, like that fabric glue that people use for sewing. I can't think of the name of it now, but it's a really
Freight check?
Yes, so something like that, or just Elmer's glue would be a nice, just a little extra support, because you don't want to see those little fuzzy ends of the yarn showing. But for the most part, you're probably not going to leave a lot of space like this. But this could be fun, like in the background, instead of just this gray, you could paint maybe like an elephant and have it like at a zoo. That might be fun. Or something like that. Like you could have something in the background, be part of more of the project, and then just get layers of dimension by doing that over it.
Yeah, make it more of like a multimedia piece and use that to make like the tops of the tree or the fuzzy grass or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Lots
like,
of fun.
you could do a really cute sheep standing in a field.
Very cute. And then you can push your your yarn to the top of the nails, or you could push them to the bottom, or you can alternate. And it could add an extra dimension of, so you can kind of see it. Things don't always show up on camera, but in real life, you can kind of see that extra dimension of some of them being up and some of them being down. And then over here, I'd probably fill that in thicker. So let's try another color. And you don't have to leave a long tail when you start. I always tend to, but it's kind of wasteful, so you really don't. You just want to leave it long enough that you can work with it at the end. And so, yeah, this would be a lot of fun to make seasonal, because it does go very fast once you get set up. You could do Halloween decorations. You could make something for Christmas or Hanukkah. It'd be a good way to create pictures for like a child's room. You just keep adding layers and layers.
It's probably a little bit late for summer camp crafting season, but this would be a fun project to do there.
Yeah. Or even at a birthday party.
Do it over winter break. There you go.
Yeah. If you're having a birthday party for a child, you could, maybe paint the boards and put the nails in advance, and maybe do these at the party. Or if you're having a sleepover, you could paint the board the night before and then finish the project the next day.
Or for the adults, have a fun little craft party too. No reason you have to stop doing that when you grow up.
Of course, I didn't stop doing that when I grew up. So I just kind of got started thinking that this was really good. I just spent a week with my grandkids, so I'm thinking about fun projects with kids, I guess. I've got kids on the brain.
That makes sense then. See, I'm sitting near my scrap basket, so I'm thinking, oh, finally a use for all these tiny balls of yarn.
Yes. Remember that granny square blanket you were going to make with all of those? Well, now you don't have to. I always look at my scraps like that and think, oh, this will make a great granny square blanket someday. So you can kind of see this kind of creates this movement, kind of like this circle. And then you got these straight lines underneath. So you could do lots of different, kind of create different effects like that if you were doing a more literal picture instead of just, random shapes. So I think it's really cool. And if you look on YouTube, there's lots of videos on YouTube that some of them are very complex. They're very complex. They're making very realistic portraits of celebrities and you can recognize them. And it's so impressive because, just with stringing the string along, it's, I'm not even sure I understand how they're doing it. They're just so impressive to me. Have you seen any of those, Claire?
I think I've seen a few of those, yes. You were mentioning at the beginning of class doing it so that the space inside the nails is empty, sort of like a negative.
Yes.
And so for that, if you create the outline of the picture with the nails, and then where would your other set of nails be? Just all around the outside of the board?
Yeah, so the ones that I've seen like that, they just did a whole line of nails all around the board. So the entire edges of the board with nails. And then, so instead of filling in the circle, you would go from this nail here to like the edge of the board and fill it this way. And that some of those are really fun. Like I saw some trees done that way and it made it look like the trees, the background was black. So the trees were more of a silhouette in the background. So it's really interesting. It's kind of a fun way of doing it. Usually we think of the main project being where all the work is, but this, if you do it that way, then the main feature of your artwork is actually no work and the background is where all the work is. So it's a whole other way of kind of thinking about creating. So by using, you should always think about the negative space though, whenever you're making something. So like even this negative space I have here, sometimes you can arrange things that the negative space actually has as much interest as the main feature of your project. So it's fun to have different levels of awareness and different ways of looking at it. So. Any other questions?
If you were going to use a thicker yarn, would you space out the nails a little bit more for that?
If you were only using a thicker yarn, then you could space the nails further apart, or you could wrap it around every other nail. You wouldn't have to wrap it around every nail, and then maybe with some thinner yarn, use the nails that you skipped. So there's a lot of choices, lots of things you could do.
Yeah, this seems like it's a lot of fun to play with and experiment as long as you're sort of willing to rip out nails and rehammer them as needed.
Yeah, so if you take the nails out too, I think, because these nail holes are pretty small, I think if you just repainted the board, that would probably fill in most of the holes, or you could go over it with some wood putty or something. It would certainly fill it in and then just sand it quickly, but I don't even think you'd have to go to all that. I think if you just painted it over, like maybe 2 coats of paint, I bet that would fill in the holes. Do you think it would?
Yeah, that'd probably work for filling in the holes. I would say if maybe you're working with, you want to leave the board blank, you might want to do a little bit more planning to start with.
Yes, yes, yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it. We'll give a couple more minutes for questions to come through in the chat, unless everybody is excitedly planning where they're going to run off and buy nails and boards and start pounding away.
So I thought this one was fun, how I kind of kept this little circle in the middle and went around. And then with this one, just by using I kept these really close, like they're very tight. And that's why it created this perimeter, which is very dense. And then I really like the way it, could do different layers. I thought that was fun. So,
The
and
overlapping shapes on that one are fun too.
yeah, I did overlapping shapes on that. I thought it would be for this one. I thought I'd keep them separate for class so that keep things visually a little simple. But see, this one, I have some nails on the perimeter. And so I could have, like, if I wanted to have negative shape, use the negative space, I could have not done this and then just connected and then created this triangle here. So you see how that would create a triangle. And then I could have left this, instead of filling in this square, I could have left it empty. And that would have created a square with negative space by filling in the rest of it. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah, that's a good demonstration of that.
Yeah. But that might be a little more advanced planning, I think. So I want to sketch it out first and get some good ideas going.
Yeah, that's one. Maybe break out some paper and your coloring pencils and see what you can plan.
Yes. But it is good though, if you mess up, then all you have to, like right here, I think you can see, it looks like I pounded some nails in there and then maybe I had them wrong and you don't even notice it. I mean, I don't, but if it bothered me, I'd go in with a little bit of paint and fill in those holes. So it's kind of a very forgiving, you can always take it out and reapproach and, give it another go. Because these boards aren't, see, it's thick enough so you can just hang it on the wall. You don't need any other preparation. You can just put a nail on the wall. But I was holding this on my lap when I was nailing it at one point, and that is a mistake. So don't hold it on your lap while you're nailing it. You will get all kinds of scratches.
Safety first.
Get all kinds of scratches on your legs, and then people will ask you how you got scratches on your legs, and you have to tell them you were hammering nails on your legs, and it doesn't make you sound like a genius. So anything else?
I think that is it. Hopefully we've inspired everyone to go give this a try.
And if you do have any questions as you're going forward, you can always contact me on Instagram or Facebook. Maybe Claire will put my Instagram name in the chat. It's Mr. Woolly Bear. And then on Facebook, it's just my name spelled out just the way it is. Send me a direct message. I'm always happy to answer questions. If you make something, I'd love to see it. If you want to tag me in it or send me a picture, it'd be great. So. Okay.
And then while we still have you all here, we have another yarn art class coming up, let me see, next Monday, the 19th. We're going to be doing some punch needling. So another fun non-knitting, non-crochet yarn craft. And then coming up in October, we've got some special classes that are going to be a little bit Halloween or spooky season themed. So we'll be doing some fun amigurumi and some tassels and some crochet lace. And those will all be listed on the Michaels website shortly, so you can sign up there.
Okay. Thanks for coming to class. Let me know if you have any questions. Just don't forget to practice.